and welcome back to Dukascopy TV. Kicking off this first week back in the studio, I'm joined now by Jean-François Owczarczak to discuss some of your favourite pairs. Jean-François, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you, Natalie, for having me again.
Now, today is really a digestive week almost as the markets look to respond to the events of last week. Talk us through, what are we seeing at present?
Well, basically, in fact, there was a lot of buzz last week, and I just want to take a bit of time to look at the trends of the individual instruments. So we're going to quickly go through each one of them on an investor's view, meaning looking at the weekly, that's the view over the next few quarters, the daily, the view over the next few months, and the hourly, the view over the next few weeks. So I'm going to start with the Australian dollar. And as you see here, this is the way we depict the different trends. We have a summary chart here with 1, which is the long-term horizon, the 2 here, which is the medium-term horizon, and the 3, which is the short-term horizon. And maybe I could diverge quickly to a user guide. If we look at our methodology, these trends are depicted here with the long-term trend in black, the medium-term trend in red, and the minor trends in blue. And we like to see it as an analogy of being on the Autobahn, for the long-term trend on a national road, for the medium-term trend, and on a secondary road on the short-term trend. So now if we go back to the mosaic, go back into our private selections, into the private selection for Dukas here, go back to the dailies, and quickly go back to the Australian dollar. Now what we see here, and maybe I will zoom into it, well, the weekly chart for the Australian dollar is still in a downtrend. For now, it still should have another quarters to go into this downtrend. It hasn't reached its targets, which are in the region between 68.77 and 78.48. However, we are certainly in the area of an intermediate bottom, meaning that our risk index is in the oversold area and our envelopes are slightly touching each other. Now, if we go on to the daily has seen the beginning of this correction up. As you can see, we were highly oversold in the risk index, had stress on the envelopes, and we're correcting up. It is normal to label it only as a correction for now, as it is bounded by what we expect from a corrective target here. So although it is in a bull, we're still only in a correction, as mentioned on the chart here, corrective up. It would really become impulsive and starting to cast the long-term trend into doubt if we made it above the corrective targets here. It's around 95.65. So there's a bit of a figure and a half to go before we can confirm anything bigger. Now if we go back here, we look at the hourly charts. They're still uptrending. We had a nice intermediate top last week following the news. A bit of pullback at the moment, but it doesn't seem too serious, and there still seems to be a bit of a potential to be done, as well as some time to complete it. Now I'm going to move a bit quicker through the other ones. If we go to the euro, well, the euro, the long-term trend, the weekly, has turned slightly positive, and the targets are following up. This is quite an aggressive view at the moment because we're barely above the corrective targets here. But if this long-term trend was to be confirmed, there's about 20 figures of uptrend over the next 2-3 quarters. It's a bit too early to confirm that, but at least if you follow the trend, that's what the trend is saying at the moment. And that is confirmed by the daily, which is heading up, which has made it above its long-term resistance here that had been holding prices since at least the month of March. What we see now is that we're in an uptrend, slowly getting risky again, but there's still some potential here over the coming weeks. In terms of time, it has to happen quite quickly because we're pretty much towards the end of this time zone. On the hourly, also, although nice intermediate top last week, the consolidation is very shallow for now. We think it's probably going to continue, and it's probably another week to 10 days to go. In general, we are in a risky environment short term. It seems like there's a bit more space over the medium term. The long term is positive, but it's still very, very early stages. So let's just hold it as a bull for now with a bit more of a potential, and we'll have a new fresh look at it next week. Now if we look at continuing on mosaic, if we look at cable, still in a very sideways situation over the weekly, hence the bear here and the corrective targets down, but a nice acceleration on the daily. And the daily here is slowly getting overbought, so although the targets are still up over the next 2 months, we may see a bit of less stronger progression. If we look here, the hourly is also close to the intermediate top here, but it also doesn't seem finished, so pretty much in line with what we see with the euro.
We seem to be having a shift into a bullish sentiment as well as we sort of move into the nearer term.
It does, and we just need to see it confirm on the weeklies, which is basically has been consolidating now since basically the beginning of the chart. Now if we go to the mosaic, let's have a look at gold. We're a bit more negative on gold. Basically, our long-term trend is still down, as you can see here, similar to what we see on Australian dollar. We're quite nicely oversold and hence an intermediate bottom. The reaction up we could well see here with a bull and this green corrective up target. We never really made it above the corrective targets, which means that we're still only in a correction, and it's having trouble really being confirmed. What we would really need to see is making it above the 1420 to create anything more significant. Usually the reaction should come quite quickly to create two tops, pretty much about 6-7 weeks away. There's not much time left, so we believe this is probably going to turn into a resumed downtrend. Now it's in a downtrend on the hourly. It's very much oversold, so expect a bit of work here over the next week or so. But in general, we think that this correction up will be coming to an end over the next month or so, and that we can resume the downtrend. Now, if we look quickly, Swiss franc is quite similar to what we have on the euro. It just broke out. There's still some levels from earlier this year which are holding, but it's a dangerous situation, and we do have to follow the negative trend here on the dailies. It's not quite clear on the weeklies yet. Bit of an intermediate bottom on the hourlies, but it seems like at least over the next week or so, it's still trending down. Now, dollar against Japanese yen, not as clear cut. Basically, the weekly is still heading up, and although it's quite well overbought here on the long-term trend, it still seems that that was only an intermediate top. So we may be awaiting over the next few quarters a further advance of the dollar against the Japanese yen, and an eternal long-term consolidation here, which is not doing very much damage on the daily, and we're just waiting for it to really resume the uptrend. Now, if we look at the hourlies here, we're still on an uptrend, but we seem to be leading ourselves into a correction down. So maybe a bit of weakness on the dollar over the next week or so, in line with what we see on dollar Swiss. Now, if we look into the S&P, we've been consistently bullish on it, flagging the intermediate top here, flagging the resume uptrend here. We still think it's in an uptrend, although the weeklies are getting into quite an expensive area with the risk index in the red. But the dailies probably have a bit more to go and probably will re-enter the red zone over the next few weeks. We probably think also that there's probably 2 or 3 more weeks to go before an intermediate top can be called. A small intermediate top here on the hourlies, but nothing very damaging yet, and I believe you're probably going to see a resume uptrend to reach these targets here. Finally, on interest rates are heading down over the long term. We think the move is not quite over. It's still in a corrective move, so it's not a dramatic move yet, but it's still heading down. And what we see here on the dailies is a bit of overbought situation, which is leading to a lateral consolidation up or sideways, as we could see. We still think this is an intermediary state, and that rates should have another go. Well, it's not rates, this is the future. Should have another go at correcting down. That means the move up on rates is probably not over. And a slight correction up here, probably a bit more to go, slowly getting overbought, but there's probably another week or so in it. And that's about it.
Jean-François, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me again.
Jean-François will be back with us next Monday, but for all of your latest FX analysis, news and reviews, stay tuned to Dukascopy TV. Goodbye for now.